Hello to everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on Solomon's Temple. My name is Solomon Nizang Shams. It's so great to be with you wherever you are. I see quite a few people are commenting already. My name is Uncle Solomon, and this is Solomon's Temple, where we get to discuss issues concerning the Christian faith, issues concerning what we believe in. We share stories of people that are going through different phases of their life and what God is doing in their lives also. That's important for us to look at and also to get to discuss, so our faith can be encouraged and we can grow and be also more like Christ. And that's what we get to do. We also get to investigate issues that has to do with different areas of the Christian faith. We do that quite a lot. So that's what we definitely get to do here. So I would want to thank you, everybody, for joining me. And some people are joining for the very first time. So thank you so much. Make sure you are all subscribed. I see quite a lot of people from YouTube. I hope you've subscribed. So everybody, please, I want you to subscribe. Thank you, Rodney. Rodney's saying, hi, Uncle Solomon, watching from Cape Town. Thank you so much. And I guess Prunell is saying bonjour do. Obviously, she's from Canada. You could see the Canadian flag there. Zunai Andre from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much. Gladzo from Limpopo. Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you, everyone. Hector is here. Janita, thank you so much for joining. I'm not going to waste so much time. I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. We're going to be looking at the issues of fatherless daughters. You know, you can make it a general point and say fatherless children, you know, either male or female, whichever you chose to look at. But we have a generation that is really struggling because their fathers were not there. So they're now in their 20s, their 30s, because of the absence of their fathers, either because the fathers left early after they were born, or they don't even know their father. The father just disappeared. Believe it happens. Or they know the father, but the father says, look, I don't want anything to do with you. Now, how do you now go through life? Because the way God has put it together, a father and a mother, it's very crucial and very important in the development and growth of a child, especially in the very early stages. Just so values could be and principles could be shared and planted in the life of this young person. So we have that. What are we going to do? What is God's perspective? What is the biblical perspective to it? Tonight, I have a guest that has experienced that, you know, where her father left very early in her life. And because of that, she made some decisions that, you know, she felt if her father was around, just maybe, you know, it would totally be a different ball game, you know, and that really affected her, especially women. You know, the way they always say that girls end up being very close to their dads compared to their mother. You know, you have all of that. But in the course of this, when I said I was going to be talking about this, somebody on Facebook actually sent me audio to share her own experiences. So we're just going to quickly go through our experiences, and then I'm going to bring my guest here who has also written a book. And you have to get a copy of her book, and you just have to wait to hear her story from her. But before then, let me share a story of someone who on social media who got in touch with me and said, look, my dad actually said he wants nothing to do with me. Here's the story.
Okay. Towards the end of that year, I think in December, because I've been living with them for a year.
Okay, not this one. Let's start from here.
Hi, Uncle Solomon. Like I was saying, my story is too long. I actually don't know where to start, but today's topic is very sensitive for me. I grew up from one house to the other. I remember from the age of 2 from pictures that there was a time I was living in Joburg with my grandmother's sister. And then I moved from there. I would go back home to my mother. And when my mother goes back to school, they had to look for someone else to look for me, to look after me. So actually, when I was 9, I met my father, and I then had to move from staying with my aunt. There was an aunt that I was staying with, so I had to now move. I'm sorry about that. So moving in with his girlfriend, the girlfriend had a little boy. I think he was 3. I think she came in the relationship with the boy, and I am the first child from my dad. He didn't have any other kids. And even now, I'm the only daughter. He has other sons with the lady, but I'm the only daughter. But I promise you, moving in with them, I experienced all kinds of abuse. Anything that would go wrong in the house would be me. I was not allowed to see my mother. I was not allowed to go visit my mother. I was not allowed to call or have any kind of communication with my mother. And towards the end of that year, towards the end of that year, I think in December, because I've been living with them for a year, the house was small, so I knew where the lady would put money. So one night I decided, I think I've had enough. And I was missing my mom. I was missing, even though I couldn't see my mother all the time. My mom was also schooling, trying to finish her teaching degree at the time. And I decided one night that, you know what? As scared as I was, I stole money. I think it was about 100 rand. And I kept, trying to make sure that nobody notices what I was planning. I didn't tell anyone anything. I kept quiet. And in the morning, I woke up, and around 5 a.m. in the morning, I woke up, put my clothes in plastic bags, ShopRite plastic bags, and then I threw them out the window. I grabbed whatever that was, a dress, put on the dress, put on my shoes, jumped out the window. I arrived at home, and my mom was not there. My aunt was there, and I told my aunt what had happened. The shock of them seeing me after a year was, because I was there. I moved to Pretoria, I think the previous year, around November, when school closes for the December holidays, then I moved there. And then I'm only coming back the following year around the same time. So then we have to wait for my mother to come back. Then she came back, and then I told her again what had happened. So she went to my grandmother and tried to get...
It's a concluding part. Yeah, this is a concluding part.
I will start the story by where I said I stole money that night, and I made plans that went to tell my grandmother that I was back, and she wanted to understand what really happened. Why was she cut off? Why she couldn't see me? Things like that. And my grandmother then decided to call my father's brother to come and mediate between the two of them. So he came, and they went to Pretoria, where my father lived. And when they got there, the way I had the story, he just told them where to get off. They can't tell him how to raise his own child. So then my mother decided, okay, we want to go to the school and take the documents. So, because I'm taking my child back. They went. My school was very far. It was far. Like I used to walk there. It would take me an hour to arrive to get. I was not alone, no, but it was far. And the other problem is he promised my mother that he will take me to a better school. He didn't. He promised my mother that he would get, a transport for me to go to school and come back. He didn't do that. And another thing is the things that happened in that house. They still haunt me sometimes. I've battled with depression from that time, and sometimes it gets so bad. And I've tried to commit suicide, I don't know how many times. And I always fail, or someone would come up, or I would plan to do it and I would wake up, I would fall asleep and wake up and it wouldn't happen. So later, when I had grown up, I went to university in the same city where he was. We never met for 4 years. When I graduated, my mother decided to let him know that I was graduating. He didn't come. Then, when I was getting married, my mother went to my grandmother again and told her what was going on. They called him and told him. His response was, they can't tell him about a wedding over the phone. So my mother had to go to his house and come and tell him what was going on. So my mother decided he was not going to do that. So he didn't come. He never arrived at all. He never called to give an excuse or whatever, nothing. He didn't come. And then in 2019, he reconnected with his sister, my aunt. So they went to the son. You remember the little boy that I was staying with? He was graduating as a doctor. And there was a time that my father called me. I don't know where he got my numbers, to let me know that his son is studying as a doctor. And then I'm nothing. I've wasted my intelligence on boys, and that he told me before that I would amount to nothing, and what he said had come true. My response was, but then I went to school and I graduated, so I'm not sure what you mean. And then he hung up on me. We never spoke again from that time. That was in 2017. We never spoke again. So after the wedding, when they were coming back from the graduation ceremony, he threw a tantrum. So the fight was, why did his siblings marry me off in his absence? So because he didn't want me to get married, so why did his siblings marry me off? Because they had no right. I'm not their child, according to him. And that if they wanted to do it, they were supposed to ask for his permission. Things like it was a huge fight. It was a huge fight. So there's something that also happened when I was young, when I was living in that house with my father and his girlfriend. There was one night in the morning. I woke up and you open your eyes because I could feel a certain breathing on my neck, and I've never told anyone about this. I've never breathed a word. So this person is like hugging me from the back and just penetrating me, and then I moved a little, and then he stopped. He stopped, covered my head with the blanket, and then he stood up. And then he stood by the door. So I turned, like pretended like I was still sleeping, and then peeped. And I could see it was my dad standing there. Till this day, he never spoke about that day. I've never spoken about that day. I've never asked anything about that. Till today, we've never spoken about that event at all. And sometimes I sit and I wonder, um, does he hate me because of the things that happened, or there's another reason that he wants nothing to do with me? My father hates me so strongly, like you could see the hate in his eyes. It's yo, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a story of one fatherless daughter. I mean, I don't need to break it down for you. You've heard her just giving us that side of her story. And we have quite a lot of this kind of stories, around South Africa, not just in South Africa, but around the African continent. And you might be African living in the US or wherever, and you hear these kind of stories, what's God's plan? Oh, wow. I just lost my guest here. Ntombi, if you can reconnect, because I'm going straight up to you right now, Ntombi. So you have all this, right? You have all these things that's going on, and it's sort of like, what's really going on? What has happened to fathers? Mwape is saying, this story is touching. I really feel sorry for this woman. Yeah. And it's sad that this happened to people as young, at that age, where your father would tell you point blank, you will never amount to anything. I don't want anything to do with you. You got married. He wasn't there. He was told. School didn't do what he promised he would do to your mother. So we have those kind of situations, and I would have my guest Tombi, who's going to be just sharing her story. She's written some, a great book, and she's going to be telling us about the book that she's reading, and also just about her story. This is some sort of the story that I just shared now is sort of like a different story from what Ntombi went through, but she's going to be here. She's going to be sharing that story for us. I'm sure she's here. Yes. Hi, Ntombi. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, Uncle Solomon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Good
hear you.
evening.
Yeah, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. I introduced you through another person's story, but your story is just been, I saw a few people on social media sharing about your story, your book, basically, your story through your book,
Yes.
and I felt it was right to to have you here and to talk to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself to start with.
My name is Ntombenhle Vianto Mtshali. Greetings to the viewers at home. I'm struggling with my connection here, so I might try to connect on my cell phone as well. Is that okay? Just in case
Yes,
I lose you from
yes,
my
you can do
laptop.
that.
Yes. Okay. So yeah. So my name is Ntombenhle. As I said, Vianto Mtshali. This is the name. Ntombenhle is the name that I got from my parents. And Vianto is the name that I got from hardships, from the difficulties of life. I'm a founder of a women's ministry called VIA. Well, I wouldn't want to call it women's ministry anymore, but it's a ministry that in general focuses on issues of life, real issues of life. And I will tell you later how it came about. But Vianto, then, okay, the name of the ministry is called VIA.
Okay.
VIA is an acronym for Victory is Assured. And so I started to declare that over myself and over my life, that victory is assured. And so as an affirmation, I then combined the first three letters of a daily affirmation for me. So it's a name for me. My name is Ntombenhle Vianto. So when I say I'm Vianto to you, I'm declaring that victory is assured for Ntombenhle. I'm a mother of three beautiful girls. I'm divorced. I'm born again. I'm an author. I recently wrote a book called I Weathered the Storm, and that is why you and I are talking today.
Okay. Yeah. So your picture is moving. We can hear you. So just speak a bit louder, but we can hear you. But your picture seems to be still and not really the best of it. But the good thing is we can hear you. So I actually have what did I have? I actually have a picture
Okay.
of you here and your daughters. These are all your daughters, isn't it?
Yes, yes, those are my daughters. The first one is Ntombenhle. The one in a white dress looking at me is Pure, and the last one is Minenhle. Because of their names, they all end with Hle, so I call them my Hle. Yeah, those are my daughters, my beautiful girls.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Now, tell us about your life, yourself. Just
Sorry.
yeah. So
I tried to
yeah,
log
your
on
cell
here, so
phone.
I want to disconnect from the.
Yes. If you disconnect that one,
Okay.
let me have you here.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, this is far
Yes,
better.
let me disconnect on the other one. Is it? Okay.
Yes. So we can definitely this is far better, and you just need to make sure the camera is steady. Keep it somewhere where you don't.
Okay, let's switch this one off.
Yeah, make
Right.
sure you switch off that one. Yes.
There we go. Is that good?
Okay. Yes, that's
Is this
good.
good?
Very, very. Yeah.
Good.
Your phone is still on, yeah? The other one
Yes.
is still on, is it? No, the other one is still on. Is it still
Yeah,
on?
I switched it. No, I logged off on the other one.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So that's good. So like I was saying, I have a picture of you here as a very, very little girl. That is you and your parents. And who is that? Is that your older
Yes,
brother?
that's my older brother, Ntlantla. That's with our parents. He was 2 years older than me.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Okay. And then this is you and him when you've grown up a little bit, still growing. And this is your dad who is some sort of a fashionista. Uh,
Yes. Oh, yes.
yeah. So maybe
Yes,
you
that's
pick
my
up
father.
some things from him. And
I
he,
think so.
yeah, tell us about your dad and tell us about your upbringing.
Well, I can't tell you much about my dad because honestly, I don't have um, a collection or recollection about him. I just know that he was married to my mother, as you saw in the picture. And, from the time I was a baby until I was 2 years old, my parents were together, but they separated when I was 2. So I can't remember much, about him. When he left, I was 2. Their divorce was finalized when I was 5. And so it has always been my mom and my brother and myself. And so there is really not much that I can tell about him. But my upbringing was good. My mom was a professional school teacher. And so, she tried her level best
for us not to feel the absence of a father. And so for the longest time, I actually did not even realize that there was something wrong because there was something wrong with not having a father in the house, because she really tried her best, in terms of material things. She would try to provide for us. There was no relationship as well from the father's side, from our father's side. And so I did not feel like I was missing anything, because there was nothing really to miss. I did not know otherwise. It became a different story when I started to realize that there was actually something wrong. I needed to have a father. As much as mom was doing awesome and everything that we needed, we got from her, but I needed a father.
How old were you when you realized that? How old were you when you started?
I was 17 years old.
I
was 17. I was at tertiary. Look, the whole story is in the book, so I will just give you the highlights. I was 17. I was at tertiary. All my life, all the 17 years of my life, I thought, the way things are supposed to be is that there's mom, there's brother, there's daughter. But when I get to tertiary, and I used to stay at the res, at the school hostel rather, I then saw young girls, because the hostel that I was staying in was for girls only. And so I saw the relationship between girls and their fathers. And that started to affect me. That started to raise questions for me. Why am I not with my dad? Why is my father not here? I know where he is. I know who he is. But why is he not here? And then I started to question. I questioned my mother. I questioned all my relatives, my aunts, my mother's sisters. But I did not have a relationship with my father's side. So there was no one to question from that side. It was only him that I was looking for. And now my father had also gotten married to somebody else, which I did not really know that much, but I knew she was there. You see, my father was not a stranger to me. I knew who he was. I knew almost everything about him. It's just that he was just absent. He was not there.
So when was that?
And
before you turned 17, between when you were 2 and when you were 17, how often did you see your dad? Did you see him during that space of time? What happened?
I would probably be exaggerating if I were to say I saw him more than 10 times between the ages of 2 and 16. Because I started questioning his absence. Yes. I would be exaggerating if I were to say, like, I did not see him that much. I don't even know how my father used to laugh. I don't know his laughter. I know absolutely nothing about him. The only thing that I remember, and that is in the book, was how at some point he was violent. Shoo, my battery is dying. How at some point he was violent when he would come to my mother's house.
What
But
do you mean
at
by
that time I was very
What do you mean by that? He will come to your mother's house and what? Get angry over certain things
and
when
beat
they
her
have a
up.
discussion?
And
beat her up.
and beat my mother up. Yes.
And
Then
you were there. You and your brother were there when that was happening.
Yes. 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 We were. And so I had a totally different depiction of what a father was. All my life I knew, obviously because of biology as well, I knew that one needed to have a father. I had a father. I was not confused about that. I just didn't know what the role of a father was, what he's supposed to do, and also my mom did not make it easier for me either, because she was very protective of me. And so there were many stories that she would tell me about the male species, and that sort of made me feel like, really, we don't need males, we don't need men. At some point, I know my mom said to me, the only man that, or the only boy that you can trust is your brother. You can't trust anybody else. And so I grew up thinking men cannot be trusted, you know, but there was no one to model that differently for me. You know, my dad was not there. My uncles were absent in their own spaces. So absence of a father was normal for me for the longest time. So as I said, when I got to varsity, I then saw a different picture altogether. And that's where the confusion started. That's when I started questioning a lot of things about why he would, this lady, the lady that was talking before, mentioned that she's the only girl. I happened to be the only girl as well. So I did not understand why he would not want to father me, you know, because I was the only girl. I saw other men being excited with their daughters, loving their daughters, being everywhere with them. And so I then, it caused a lot of confusion, and I ended up then falling into deep depression, became very suicidal as well. I became very needy. I think needy is the right word to use. Became needy because there were means that I tried, you know, so that him and I could have a relationship. And it seemed like he was not interested. And I'm saying it seemed like because later on in life, I discovered it was a different story altogether. He said to me he wanted to have a relationship with me. He just couldn't, you know, but it's all in the book.
So you have an absent father, you know, until you got to 17, and now you started like, hey, actually life is different, you know, but you spend a lot of time with your mother, right? Reflecting now, I know you mentioned a few of it, but reflecting now, how did you see your mother trying to play the role of your father, which she didn't do very well because she's not your father anyway?
Yes.
You know, that kind of thing. Yeah, because she's the only one there. So definitely she's not a father, she is a mother. She's not a husband, she's a wife. And I know there are many mothers that try to do their best in that kind of situation. But then you, now as an adult, you can look back and say, look, she made mistakes here and there. She tried here and there.
I'm glad you actually mentioned the part that she can never be a father. You know, when I have talks, I usually say God is not confused. When he made a woman and said this one will be a mother, and he made a man and said this one will be a father. There was no confusion. Nobody can be both. You can't be both, whether you play that role or not. And my mom was always there. My mom, even now, you know, I'm almost 40 now, but my mom is still there for me. But there was that void that she could never fill, whether she wanted to or not. And what I think was a mistake for her was that, and it was not wrong, I mean, she was coming from a good place, but what I think her mistake is that she tried too hard to cover for my dad. She tried too hard to a point where I also thought we actually don't need fathers. So my story then changes when I see people having fathers. I start to think there is something wrong with me, because I grew up thinking we don't need fathers, because she made me think that, you know, all is well. You know, I've got this. When I need this, mom, look, I mean, she was a teacher, and on a teacher's salary, you can't really do that much with 3 children. She later on had a son, which is my younger brother. So you can't really do that much on a teacher's salary, you know. But she went all out. I could see, you know, at some point later on in life, I discovered that she would even get monies from Abomashonisa, you know, and all of that. And I feel that my reality, I've got a chapter in the book where that says my unreal reality. The unreal reality. My reality was really not real for the longest time, because she was trying so hard to cover. Had I known, had I been told the truth, had I been sat down and said, and we had this conversation, I doubt that I would have ended up making certain decisions that I made in my life. I doubt, and I'm not blaming her, just hear me well. I'm not blaming her. It was her way of trying to make us, grow like other children and
Yes,
feel
she did her
comfortable.
best. That's the best
She
she
was
knew how
trying
to
her
deal with
best.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. That was her best, But I really feel like I should have known the truth. I should have known the real truth. I should have been given an opportunity to miss him, because I never really missed him. I never missed my dad. I should have been given an opportunity to ask questions about him before I turned 17. I had everything. I did not miss him. I did not have to ask any questions until I went outside of my home. And then I realized, there's a missing part here, and I would like to be part of it. I want this, It got very bad for me. Okay, we'll talk about it as we continue.
So, I mean, it's obvious that your mom tried to cover up and to do everything to make sure that you do not even realize that that you have a father. Obviously, from your story, it's more like you don't need a father. From when you were 2 to like 17, why do you need a father anyway? And all that is because of your experiences. There was no reason to actually convince yourself that you need a father.
Yes.
Because of the environment. Yeah, there was no reason. Because of the environment you were in, and because of how you were protected. And the protection is coming from a good place. It's not like it's coming from a bad place.
Oh, no. No, it was coming from a good place. And mind you, my mother never badmouthed my dad. My mother never spoke ill of my father, Hence, there were no hard feelings for me towards him around that time.
I see.
Between 2 and 16. There was no hard feeling. He was there, but I had just blocked him. I had just blocked the existence of a man and of a father in my life, because there was no man in the house. There was no father figure. The only male figure was like 2 years older than me. So I mean, it's the same age group. So he was not really a man. That's my brother. So I blocked that. I think for me, that is the part that was missing. So I had no hard feelings towards my dad. I knew that I was Mtshali, that's my father's surname. I knew that I was Mtshali. I could even, say my praise names. She taught me that at a very early age. And so I never really missed that part. Only when I turned 17, things started changing altogether.
So take us from when you were 17 and graduating from tertiary, and then relationship with men. How was that transition?
So
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a boyfriend. I was a teenager. I had a boyfriend around that age, 17, 18. That was my first boyfriend. He was 2 years older than me. He was a year and a half older than me, because my brother is 2 years older than me. So he was not that. He was, between me and my brother. And it was a good, relationship for teenagers. It was godly. I was saved at a very early age. I think I was 9 or 10 years old when I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. So I grew up in church. There were things that I knew that I could not engage in as a teenager. And he happened also to be saved, but we were from the same high school, and we got along very well. But when I then started to see that I wanted, when my father started, because at some point I was searching for him. At some point I would make calls and ask, to meet up with him, hear his side of the story, talk to him. And my father would always be unavailable, for me.
Yeah.
And I got bored. I don't know if bored is the right word, but I did not, I was no longer comfortable with the relationship with this younger man or young boy who is my age. I then started getting attracted to older men, and specifically this one particular man who approached me. He was 10 years older than me, but now at that time I was older. I was in my early 20s, I think between 21 20. No, I was just over 20, so 21 22. And so then I met this man who was 10 years older than me. He was married, he had his children from the marriage, and he approached me. He wanted a relationship with me. I rejected him on the spot. I told him I don't want to date him, I don't want to date a married man. But after observing him for the longest time, I realized how much he loved his daughter, right? And here I am having this father that I love so much, that I want to have a relationship with so much. And he keeps on giving me stories and excuses not to see me, not to be with me. And here's a man who adores this child, who seems like he could be able to actually fill this void, that I was missing so much in my life. And so I then got into a relationship with him. And I kid you not, that has to be one of the most pleasant relationships, if I may, that I've ever been in. Believe it or not. That man kind of adored me. No, he adored me. He loved me. But his love for me was not like that one of a girlfriend and a boyfriend type of thing. His love for, sorry, can you go upstairs? Go upstairs. His love for me, my 3-year-old decided to join us, but they will be fetching her now. Sorry for that. So his love for me was like that of a father. He took care of me. He was that type that would check on me. When I bought my first car, he was with me. When I went to my first job interview, he was with me. So the love that he demonstrated for me was more of a fatherly love than that of a boyfriend. And I enjoyed that, and I held on to that relationship for dear life. I held on to that relationship when everyone was saying, you cannot, you are still young, you are beautiful, you can have your own man. Why are you doing this? Why? I just held on to it because he actually made me forget about my dad. That man made me even stop looking for him or even trying to have a relationship with my dad. So what? He doesn't want to be around. But here's this man who is actually doing everything that I think a father is supposed to be doing. And so I was happy. I was content. Please stop, baby.
So your relationship with him, how long did it last?
For years. We went on for years.
Okay, he was married, so he had a wife, but then you were his girlfriend all through.
I'm losing you now.
Okay, I was saying.
Repeat the question for me, please.
When you started the relationship with him, he was married and he had a daughter.
Yes.
So you were just his girlfriend.
He had two children. He had a son and a daughter. But I was more attracted to how he loved the daughter.
I see. Yes.
He would take her to the salons. He would take her to the salons. He loved that child. And so for me, it was foreign. And so I fell in love with that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you. Yeah. So you were just trying to fill up a certain vacuum inside of you with that kind of love and relationship.
I'm losing you.
Yeah. I said with that relationship with him, you were trying to fill up the vacuum that is with your dad not being present. and with the role that, I mean, he's a married man. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can a little bit though. Let's try
Okay.
again. Okay. I can hear you
Yeah.
now.
Okay. So you were trying to fill up a certain emptiness and vacuum inside of your life because your dad was not around with that relationship with him.
Okay, please repeat the question. I lost you a bit there.
I said, so you were trying to fill up a vacuum, an emptiness in your life with that relationship, the way that he
Yes.
loved you, even though he was
Yes.
married and had 2 kids,
Yes.
the way that he
Yes.
loved you, the way that he adores you, the way that he treated you, not just like a girlfriend, but he treated you like a, you know, like a father would. So for you, you were trying to fill up a lot of vacuum there.
I would say I was. Solomon, can you hear me? I'm struggling
I can hear you.
to.
I can hear
Can
you.
you?
Yes.
Because I can hardly hear you. But I think I got a glitch of what you're saying. I would say that I was trying to fill the void, even though I did not realize it at the time. Because at the time, for me, I just could not understand why people saw this affair as something wrong. You know, I could not understand why people were doing that. For me, it was normal. For me, it was okay. It was almost like God had answered my prayers. It was almost like finally I've got what I've been looking for.
But for you being a Christian, how did that sit with you? This is a married man and he has kids.
Okay. I'm trying to move because
Yes.
I'm losing you, so I'm trying to move to another.
Okay. You can remove the headphones and try to see also if you can hear me.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clear, loud and clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try again.
Yeah. So I'm saying, with you being a Christian and now you found somebody who loved you, though he was married with 2 kids, what was the excuse for you? Your personal excuse into going into a relationship with him?
The part that I did not mention now is that there was a time in my life where I broke up with God. Literally, I said, I am no longer born again. I do not want to be a Christian. I'm not going to participate in any of the Christian activities. I am not born again because you have failed me. And so now I'm going to start living my life the way I want to. And so there was not much guilt, but the Bible is very clear on how to raise the child. At some point in my life, how I was raised came about. Like I would sort of remember, as much as I I had made that decision that I had made, there would be things that would happen in that relationship. Okay, later on, I just maybe because it's a story that's in the book, I can't give obviously all the details, but later on we ended up staying together. I ended up staying with this married man, and he tried to pay lobola for me. My family would not have any of it because they were totally against it. I was the only one that was crazy in love. And so later on we started not to agree on a couple of things, especially spiritual things, because he then adopted a certain religious belief. And as much as I was no longer born again, but because of the seed that had already been planted in my life, there were things that I could not accept. So, and we later obviously had a child. We're staying together, and he tried to lobola me. My parents did not agree to it, but I was just holding on and holding on. But deep down, I knew that it would end. Deep down, somehow I knew. I don't know how. I don't know how to explain it. But when you are in a stolen relationship, when you are with somebody that you are not supposed to be with because they belong elsewhere, deep that it's not gonna, as we say today, it'll end in tears. So deep down, I knew that it was gonna end in tears, and it did. Ultimately, he left. He went back to be with his wife. But I want to share this part of the story. I'm not sure if I put it in the book, but at that time when he left, there was a woman that I called, and I'm sure she won't mind if I mention her name. Actually, it was Dr. Siobi, one of the greatest pastors from the East End. Yes. And so I phoned Dr. Siobi that morning. I remember now, I'm young, I'm confused, I'm crying, you know, I want God to rescue this relationship, because from this relationship, I got what I was looking for. I got a certain level of identity. And so now this man is going, and his going means that I'm losing him again. And now I'm, you know, so I phoned Dr. Siobi and I said to her, Ma, please pray with me. This man has left me, and. Can you still hear me? Because I can't see you now.
I can hear you clear.
Okay. And then Dr. Siobi said, leave that man alone. Leave that man alone. It's good that he's going back to his wife. And she said to me, I want to pray with you. I want you to reconcile with God. Do you want to reconcile with God? You know, I was like, but why? Why is she doing this? And I'm bringing this up because I feel that it was necessary for my salvation and my walk to find a woman like Dr. Siobi, a woman who was not gonna sugarcoat and tell me things that I wanted to hear, because I was hysterical when I called her. I was, you know, I was really hoping somebody was gonna be on my side, but she wasn't. She was on the side of the truth, and that helped me as well. That for her to say, let him go and don't fight for him. He is not yours. It does not belong to you. Let him go. So I did. I let him go. He left, but we had a child. There was a lot of guilt around that. I could know. I struggled to love my daughter when sanity prevailed. I sort of struggled to love my daughter again, because, you know, there was a lot of questions for me. You know, we grow up reading the word of God, and there's your Isaacs and Ishmael, you know, the permission and you know, the blessing of God, and then I started asking myself, was she really, you know, a blessing? Is she really a blessing? Is she you know, permission? And so I really struggled to love her again, you know, genuinely. Of course, as a mother, you will always love your child, but to love her without asking questions or without any other any feelings of guilt and regret, you know. So I really struggled with that, you know. That's in the book. How that ends is in the book.
Is that the book? And if you want to get the book, you know, this is how much the book costs. You know, it's 250 South African rand. It's the title of the book is I Withered the Stump. You know, I withered. There's so much content there, so you can just check her name out on Facebook, and then make sure that you follow her and request for the book if you want to get a copy of the book. Alternatively, you could also make sure that you you know, I'm gonna give you her number, the number that you could call and get, you know, request, or you order a copy of that book. Everything is in the book. Like she said, and I want to read an extract. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to see it. An extract of the book. This is chapter 8 now. And the title of chapter 8 is The End of the Road. You said, I learned to live with the pain. I accepted that my life had taken a direction that I could not manage. I borrowed my mother's car when I really needed to travel. I lived on hands out. My health also took south. I fell into severe depression. My children became sickly too, as young as they were. They were in and out of hospital with asthma and bronchitis. My eldest daughter's performance at school had dropped. You said, I didn't imagine it would be possible for me to be normal again. I did not see myself laughing, loving, reading, or even praying again, the church didn't seem to even notice that things were bad. Let's start from the bottom, which is more like the church didn't seem to notice. Because sometimes, when you go to church, you see people, everybody's going through something. But until you sit down and really ask people, you're not going to be able to get that. What was going on in your life when you were going through this first paragraph of chapter 8 of your book?
I was going through divorce. I was going through my divorce, and sorry, I have to
divorce?
I got married. Later on in life, I got married.
Okay, so after your experience with the married guy, he left, went back to his wife, and?
Yes. And then I met this guy. Sorry, I need to catch my breath. I had to go upstairs to get the charger, so I was running. So I met this guy who seemed to be speaking the same language as me, Remember, after breaking up with him, I then reconciled. Remember the call with Dr. Siobi, I reconciled with God, and it was awesome. I followed that path again. I was comfortable, I was praising God, I was worshiper. Everything was as I would have imagined, And then I met someone who was also saved, because we were speaking the same language. We met in church, and things seemed to go well. Until this one time, the marriage fell apart. Okay, the marriage went south, and at that time, that is chapter 8. Okay. Now, I cannot explain why we are in the position that we are in. And a lot of other things are happening. My finances are going south. I'm losing things. I'm losing my mind. I'm losing my health. I've just lost about everything, like literally everything. The only thing that is left for me is just to die. It's just to die with my children, because honestly, at that time, things were not working out. I think that is why I'm talking about the storm. The first 8 chapters of my book are about the storm. I'm telling the storm about my dad and, the relationships that I got into. And so, yeah, the church did not really notice, because divorce is one of those things that are not really addressed and entertained in the church. Like, there was no conversation that was held between me and my then husband when we were separated. And we used to go to this church that is known as a big church. I'm just not going to mention what church it is, but, we used to go to this big Christian church. And he left. Nobody said anything to me. I did not know where to go, who to talk to. I'm just going through a mess here, and nobody's saying anything, And if anything, people were starting to distance themselves from me. I see that question. Yes, it's going to be on the Amazon on before the end of the week. I did mention to you, right?
Yes.
So now people were starting to distance themselves from me. I suppose also, to be fair on the other parties, I would say, because of those stories that were probably being told about me, obviously when people separate, one would have their story, their side of the story, and the other would probably also have their side of the story. So it depends on which side you heard first. But what I noticed with the church was that there was no attention that I was given. Nobody asked me anything. Nobody offered any counseling between the two of us. Nobody, remember, we got married in church. And so one would expect that because it happened in church, they would sit us down and say, okay, what is the problem here? So I lost my mind. I lost everything. I lost a home. I lost a car.
So you
I
never
lost
went.
everything.
You never went for some sort of counseling. With church leaders or people in church that can help you guys.
No.
Hmm.
I did go for my own counseling though, professional counseling, but within the church,
and I was
there was
saying both of you guys sitting with another couple.
That never happened.
Okay.
No, that never happened. From the church, no, it never happened. And I think for me, that is where I started to observe. Remember when we started, I mentioned that I've got a women's ministry called VIA. That is when I actually started to observe how a lot of people who are going through difficulties, things that we've defined as, I don't want to call it a sin, but things that God hates, like divorce, God hates divorce, and many other issues that a lot of women were going through. I realized how much the church was neglecting them. And painting, you see, I don't know if we are playing church or we are playing perfect or we are painting a perfect picture, but I mean, when you go to church nowadays, you just go with your lovely dress and your lovely suit and you go there and you praise and worship and you hear the word of God and everybody drives their fancy cars and whatever, and there's just no discussions around the real issues of life, where people will just talk about, what they are really going through. If I disclose this to Solomon, he might share it with somebody else, and those are the things that we don't want, because at the end of the day, we grow up thinking that church is supposed to be a place of perfection. It's supposed to be a place where everyone is supposed to be perfect. And so when I was going through that, I then but I wanted God, at that time I wanted God. I needed God. I just didn't know how to go about it. I just didn't know how to be found by him. Maybe if I put it like that, yeah.
So you were there now, and as we bring this interview to a close, what are some of the lessons that you've learned? And now you said you run some sort of a woman's platform. So let me not call it ministry, but a woman's, a platform that helps women.
Platform. Yes.
Yes. What are some of the lessons that you've learned, and that the absence of my father, these are some of the damages that it damaged me without even my knowledge. But the more I grow older, the more I could look back and look, if my father was around, chances are I would never have made this kind of choices and all that. And what are you doing to be able? You have 3 daughters, right? You don't even have a son yet. You don't have a son yet. So maybe you have a son in future.
I don't have a son at all.
You never know. So you have them, and right now the father is not there, right? The fathers are there, and I'm sure, and I believe their fathers are playing a role in their lives, which is another sort of level, but they're not there every day you wake up in the morning. He's the one to take them to school. He's the one to dress them up, all that kind of stuff. I have 2 boys, so I do quite a lot of that anyway. But what are the lessons, and what are you doing to be able to navigate that way? And I know a lot of people who grew up without their father. When they hear their story, they come to you, Ntombi.
Yes.
And then you have to analyze, you listen to them, and then you have to advise them, you have to help them, you have to lead them. How does that work for you?
Look, I'll start with the first question. The biggest challenge for me as a girl child, from the absence of the father, was holding on to relationships. Okay, let me start here. Now I'm looking for my father. He's nowhere to be found. I become needy, right? And anything that spells rejection from anybody, can almost kill me. So I had to hold on, not just relationships with men, but also with friends, with girls, with young girls my age. There were friendships that were not fruitful. There were friendships that, when I look back, I feel that they were actually unnecessary. I should not have been friends with those people. But because I feared rejection, I then held on, to those friendships until later in life, much later, when I had an introspection and I said, but I don't need to be here. And I'm not my father's mistakes. That's the first one. The second one, in terms of relationships with men, I could not relate with men without seeking or looking for a father in him. Be it my boss, be it my boyfriend, be it my husband, whoever, I would look for a father in him. So at some point, and I kid you not, at some point I found family men very attractive, extremely attractive. If you were a family man, to me, I would just think that you are the most attractive man around, because there is that thing that I'm looking for and you seem to have it. And so that was, but also because my father was not around to display to me what a man or a husband is supposed to be, I also fell into a marriage that I had no business going into. I look at the men that I was married, and with all due respect, but I look at the men that I was married to, and I look at myself and I wonder, but how did I even allow all of this to get here? I had no business marrying that man, but I married him because there was something that I was trying to feel. There was something that, I obviously, like I said, when I began, I said to you, there was no father figure in my house. So I don't know the mother, father, children type of setup. So anything that has a pulse that comes and says, I want to create this setup with you, you grab, you take it, you make it your own. Yet, have you really, checked? Have you ticked the boxes? Does he tick the boxes? He doesn't. But you find yourself actually going into marriage with him and possibly having children with him, because now then it becomes a lifetime relationship, and there's storms in that as well. When you do that introspection, you will just look back and think, no, I did not have to do this. I did not have to do this. But for me personally, at the level that I am, even at writing the book, the intention for the book was more about healing and forgiveness. I needed to express to men and women alike, because a lot of people think this book is for ladies. It's not. It's also for fathers out there, to make them aware of the impact of their absence in their children. I won't be able to talk about a mother's absence because that is not something that I've experienced. But for fathers, and I'm saying this because a lot of other men, you'd hear discussions around men saying, no, if that woman doesn't want you to have a relationship with a child, just leave her. The child will come looking for you when they are older, blah, 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 blah. But what happens between now and the time that they are older? Can you fix the damage between now and when they are older? Because the damage happens now, So it's not only for women, but it's also for fathers. It's also for young girls, to assist them in decision making. That our identity, actually, as much as these men who are our fathers give us our names and all of that, but we cannot only look for our identity in them, because when you don't find it, you become something else, So find your identity in Christ. Find your identity. You've got to know who you are, And to mothers as well, a lot of us have experienced a whole lot of ordeals. We've like I said, sometimes you marry someone and you think, Lord, how did I do this? How did I really get into this? And then you are tempted not to give him access to the children or to the child, or for mothers as well, just to say, as much as they might have wronged you, he might have wronged you, but your child needs him. It is the child that needs the father. So it's actually for the whole family. The book is for the whole family. And yeah.
Okay.
It's available.
So if you want to order a copy of the book, this is the number to call. If you're international, this is the number to call. Or if you're international, you could actually be in touch with her via this number. Just so the book is going to be on Amazon, hopefully by the weekend or by early next week. So you can keep in touch via this number, +2782 766 4549. And if you're local or somewhere around Southern Africa, make sure you order a copy of the book. It is just 250. And you obviously, you wherever part of the country you are in, you will pay, I think, 50 rand or so for
courier.
For courier, just so they will get you the book. This is a book that I really recommend. That, you know, you are married, you are single, you know somebody who is going through this kind of life experiences, because we have a lot of people that are going through this kind of life experiences or have been through that kind of life experiences. And maybe you should even get the book and give it to young girls who are coming from a fatherless home, just so they would see the experiences of somebody who has followed the same sort of route. So please make sure you get a copy of the book. I would definitely really recommend it. But finally, final question. Tell us, you didn't tell us about your platform where you help, you help talk to women and women come together. Tell us a little bit about it, and also where people could connect to what you do.
Okay, I've got a women's conference, not conference, platform, ministry, if you may, that is called VIA, as I explained in the beginning. It's called VIA. VIA is a platform where women come together and talk about their real issues of life. I invite guests who have also weathered the storm. The reason why it's Victory is Assured, we talk stories about victory. You know, one shares about their storm and also shares how they weathered the storm, how they got their victory. Most of women out there are bitter, are angry, are fighting. So we are changing the narrative. We are changing all of that now. And so I often have conferences once or twice a year, and we all gather. The last one that we had was on the 22nd of March. It was Monday, public holiday, which was a success, and to God be the glory. And we are now in the process of also engaging with professionals, because we don't want it to only be a church thing, but we also want to, gather, and have professional helpers, professional help for women who might be going through challenges of life. But the core message about VIA is healing. Let's heal, let's forgive, let's move forward.
Thank you so much. And I just want to close with this verse from Genesis 18:19. It says, "For I have chosen him, that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice." You know, the role of the father can never be overemphasized. You know, when the father is missing, something is missing in the family. And because something is missing in the family, then that means something is missing in the life of every member of that family. You know, fathers leave their kids for different reasons. And I think a lot of fathers that actually leave their kids, they leave it because they have a pain and don't know how to progress that pain. They have not really come under the authority of Jesus, where that pain would be, dealt with and healing comes in. And that's their own way of dealing with it. You know, you see fathers abusing their kids. For me, when I see that, I see a man who is in pain. Yes. Not a man trying to show authority. No, a man who is totally broken and in pain. He doesn't even know how to help himself. That's why he's doing those destructive things. But thank you so much for sharing your story. I really do appreciate it. And everybody, you can check her out. Yeah, check her out on Facebook and follow her. Just make sure you go check out her name. Her name is right there, full name. You would see her name. And make sure you also get a copy of the book. Again, you can order the book right here, and you can get a copy as soon as possible. It's a story and great principles and values included in it. that would definitely help us to be able to navigate through life. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate this. Thank you very much, Uncle Sol.
Pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. I'll be back again tomorrow, but continue to be, if you're a father, continue to be a better father. If you are not married yet, begin to prepare yourself to be a better father, a good father when you grow up. If you're a father who had made mistakes, how do you now say, look, I need to renegotiate my life and turn it around and be able to be a better father? So thank you. May God bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you, and may you continue to walk in the path of truth. Amen. Thank you. Have a good night.